Okay, so today I'm moving deeper into these effects commands on the Dirtywave M8. I should just say at this point, don't take everything I say as gospel, because I could be slightly wrong about things. I am researching it very carefully, but you know, if you spot something I've got wrong, please don't be frightened to post a polite comment, and I'll put it down below and people will see where I've gone wrong. Hopefully I'm getting most of it right. Let's look in this song I've made, in this phrase. You can see there's a pitch bend here which is showing 0 to 0, so it's not doing anything. Now the reason I've jumped to pitch bend, because it's not actually the next one along the row, is that I'm going to need this to show off the next effects command. So I'm going to show you this one first and then we'll see what happens. So in the manual it says that pitch bend enables a continuous pitch slide up or down by the given amount. So up you go from 0 to 7F and down is 80 to FF. So you can find this effect in the second row of the sequencer effects commands, and that's another thing to say, is that I'm doing all the effects in that first chunk, which are known as the sequencer effects commands. So the value you set with the two numbers, and Tim calls these XY or sometimes XX. If there's two separate values that you can change, he calls that X and Y, and if it's just one value up and down, he just calls it XX. So this is an XX because it's just straightforward up and down. The value that you set here governs how fast the pitch changes before something stops the process, like another note or a kill or an off command. And if you have empty phrases after the phrase with the note in, the pitch will continue to change unchecked unless you once again input another note or a kill or an off command. Whatever value you set up or down, there is no limit to the height or depth of the note that can be reached by the bend, only the speed that the M8 gets there. Obviously the tempo will have an effect on this, but the note will always reach the same pitch by the end of the phrase. So let's just do this like we're using a single phrase. So if we go into this and I press edit and I press write, you see that's taken the bend note down the bottom there to 0.25. So if I press play, right, there's only one note in this phrase, and by the end of the phrase it's reaching, the note is a C, so it's actually reaching an F. So if I change that to 50, it's getting a bit higher. By the end of the phrase it's actually reaching 9 semitones, so it's reaching an A, I think. First case it was reaching F, and now it's reaching an A. So if I set it to 0.75, it's going a complete octave, 12 semitones. And if I set it to 1, it's reaching the E above the octave. So the higher the value, the faster the bend, and so the higher the note you're going to reach. Obviously if you set minus amounts, if I take it down to minus 0.25, it does the same but going down, and it would be the same with other settings, just deeper and deeper, faster and faster. Let's just reset that to 0 for a moment. In this chain I've got phrase 10, that's the phrase that I've just been showing you, and I've got 11, 11, 11. So what's going to happen here, I'm going to start this off and it's just going to keep bending up and up and up as it drops down to the other phrases. And it will just keep going, I won't hurt your ears. But if I go into that phrase and I make that a faster bend like this, now listen. It gets fairly crazy. So there we are, that's pitch bend, and a pretty useful command. Obviously you can do it on calls and notes, anything you can think of. So yeah, I've jumped ahead to that one because I want to use it in my next effects command, which is random, and this is an XY. So with this one we're going to have 2 digits to alter. Let's load in a new song. Okay, so here I've got much the same sort of thing. I've got a C5 this time, it doesn't have to be a C5. I've got a pitch bend set on the first step in that FX1. If I look inside that, you'll see it's set to the minimum bend that I can do, which is 0.25. And underneath that I've got our new effects command, which is random, and this randomizes the previously active effects command in a phrase or table, and you can independently control the ranges left X and right Y values from 0, which is no randomness, to F, which is full range. So the two numbers in the random effects command set the range of the randomness of the initial effect command. In this case it's a pitch bend from 0, no randomness, to FF, full randomness. You can use the right and left buttons to change the right digit and the up and down buttons to change the left digit. So if I hold edit, it's always hold edit, don't forget. So right and left changes that right number, and up and down they change the left digit. So we're going to bring the right digit up. Let's bring it up to, I don't know, 3, so not too high. So with this setting the pitch bend will change randomly, but not too much. Let's just play it. Okay, so it is changing, quite a lot, even with that very low setting. Let's lower that even more. Let's take it down to as low as I can make it without turning it off. Different one there. So what we're actually doing here is making the pitch bend unpredictable and at a fairly low level. Let's raise this up. Let's raise the left digit up. Now listen. Going pretty crazy, a bit too crazy. Let's lower that down to 1. So that is random, it's randomizing the effect above it, and you can mess around with this and see what's the right setting for your particular song. Our next effect is going to need a new song. Now this one is similar to the previous one, but it randomizes the command to the left of it. So if you look here, I've got on effects 1 I've got the pitch bend, and on effects 2 I've got the random left command. So this effect command is going to affect the one to its left. So this is going to affect the pitch bend just like before, but it's on the right but not on the left. So we've got this random left to the right of the pitch bend effect. It's going to affect the pitch bend just like the previous effects command did. So if we just change this like we did before, we'll come up to, now listen. So it's changing it just in the same way that the previous effect command did, but it's on the right of the effect, not underneath it. Now here's a very interesting thing. We can put this RNL in effects 1 slot and it does something very different. I'm going to load in a different song for this. So the randomize left command is in the effects 1 slot now, and here it works differently. If you place this effect command in effects 1, the note and the instrument number will be randomized. With this second scenario, the first digit controls the randomization of the note and the second digit controls the randomization of the instrument number. Now I should say the latter one, the one that changes the instrument number, depends on how many instruments have been assigned sounds, as empty instrument slots in the song will result in silent notes. I'm not terribly sure about that, but I think that's right. So let's just change the left digit, okay, by going edit and up, and this should change the note, and we bring it up quite a lot. You'll hear the note changing randomly. Obviously that will increase as you increase that left digit. And so let's just bring that back for a moment so the note doesn't change, and we'll increase the right digit, and this should increase the change of instrument. Now I've got quite a lot of instruments in this song, but every now and again it won't sound because it'll hit an empty instrument. There. Empty one there. Empty one there. You see, it's very unpredictable, and that is the point. You're getting lots of happy accidents. You won't know from one run through of a phrase to another what you're going to get, and that's the sort of joy of it, rather than this terrible predictability of mechanical sequencing where you get the same thing over and over again. Here you don't, and this random factor really comes into play. So that is RNL, and it's a really useful one, isn't it? I'm trying to not only show you what these effects do, but give you practical examples, and that's obviously what's taking the time. Right, we're going to move on to our next one, which is Retrigger, and we're going to need a new song for this. So you can see I've got this RET, Retrigger, and I put it in effects 1. I've got this note here. Let's just set this to 0 for the moment. Now this is an XY, so you've got 2 different digits, 2 things to alter. Let's read what it says. This retriggers the current row with volume ramping at a given number of ticks. So this is your classic ratchet, if you like. Now there's a couple of scenarios here. If you look at where the cursor is, you've got an X on the left and a Y on the right, so 0 and 0 at the moment. Now, so if the digit on the right, the Y, if you like, is set not on 0, okay, so not as it is now, the left-hand value, the X value, sets the way the volume increases or decreases over time. So let's set X to 8 and Y to 6. Okay, let's explain what's going to happen here. Now this means that if you have a note on step 0, 0, which we have, it will retrigger on every step every 6 ticks. So that 6 there on the right means that that C7 is going to trigger on every step of this phrase. It's like entering in 16 semiquavers. Let's just run that. And I tried this yesterday, and I won't bore you with it now, but if you enter in 16 C7s, it's exactly the same thing as that. So what does the 8 mean? Well, the 8 means at the moment there's no volume change. If I hold edit and I keep pressing up, you'll see the volume is increasing. It goes up to 7, then goes back to 0, and then it starts going down the other way. So let's have a volume increase of, say, +4. Now listen. You hear the volume coming up. Let's have a volume decrease. Just keep going because this is like an endless encoder. Let's have a volume decrease of 5. So you've got all those retriggers and the volume decreasing. Now if the Y value is set to 0, so let's just do that. Let's set that to 0. Both on 0 at the moment. There's a different scenario. So with the Y value set to 0, that's the one on the right. The X value, the one on the left, sets how far apart the retrigs are in ticks. There's no change in volume over time with this setting. If I set this to 6, you'll hear you get 1 retrigger on the second step of the phrase because 6 ticks equals 1 semiquaver. So if I want something faster than that, then I take that down. What should we take it down to? Say 4. And that's retriggering 4 ticks after the original. So I could really open that up. So if I set it to 12, it comes on step 2. So the highest I can go is F. So there's 2 ways of using that retrigger. Now a more conventional way, of course, is to do ratchets on hi-hats. So let's load in a different song for this. Right, so here I put a retrig on step E. I've got the classic hi-hat pattern here. I haven't put a hi-hat on the very last step of the bar to make room for the retrigger to be heard. But here we've got a retrigger of 1 and 2. So if I hold edit down, you'll see the volume is going to decrease by 7 and there's going to be 2 ticks between the retriggers. So it's going to be the classic ratchet. Here we go. And that lovely ratchet on the end of the bar. And again, trial and error, mess around with this. It's a really, really useful effects command, this, and with a couple of permutations. Okay, let's move on to our next effects command. Right, now the next one is called repeat. So we're going to load in another song. In this new song we've got this retriggered hi-hat. I put the retrigger in a different place. Okay, and we're going to look at the other track, track 2, and in this we've got a note of C4 on the first step. I put a volume command here. Now I've jumped ahead to volume here because I need this to show off this next effect, and volume is very, very straightforward. Basically what it does, if I hold edit down, you can see that the volume of this note is set at -32 relative to the mixer level. So if I look at the mixer level for this track, it's set at E0, but if I come up and hold edit down, E0 in the relative volume is going to bring that down -32 from that mixer setting, so it's relative to the original volume setting. And I've set it low for a reason, because our new effects command is REP, repeat, and what this is going to do is going to bring the volume up and keep on ramping it up gradually across the phrase as the phrase carries on. Now what happens if you have another note in the phrase, I've got a C5 down here, is that C5 will pick up the ramp at the point that it's coming down, so there won't be any nasty lurch in the volume. In fact, I'll take that extra note out for a minute. I think you're going to hear the volume come up and keep coming up. That's great, isn't it? I really love that. With these extra notes, let's have a listen to what happens. So as those two extra notes come in, they pick up the ramp, and so this first C5 will be halfway up that ramp and this one will be near the top. So you can have a C4 pretty quiet, a C5 louder, and another C5 even louder. You can hear that volume coming up. So if I show you phrase 21, where there's nothing except that volume ramp, you can see right at the top there is what's known as a double caret. Okay, and that's showing us that that volume is being ramped up from the previous phrase. Okay, let's just come into this and we'll try and make the volume go down. I've set the initial volume at 10 now, which is 16 above the relative. Notice how it comes down. And the notes get gradually quieter. So you can ramp the volume up and down. And of course we've got that hi-hat pattern on track 1. Let's play both tracks together. Sounds really nice, doesn't it? So these aren't just sort of geeky things just to learn and throw away. They're really a crucial part of your music making on the M8. Right, I've got just one more effects command to show you today, and that is RMX. Somebody on YouTube asked me about this, and luckily it was the next one in the list, so I've squeezed it into today's tutorial. So RMX is a bit of a weird one. It sets the phrase playhead position Y out of the XY of the tracks to the left of the current track. So select which tracks are affected using the right digit. So this one is an X and a Y. So we need to load in a new song. This is a very simple song that I wrote in my early days of the M8. Let's just have a listen to it. So very basic, all 8 tracks being used. Let's come across to track 8. Over on track 8, if I hold shift and right, and I've got these phrases, going to the first phrase, and you can see I've got this RMX F8 set in the effects 1 column on this phrase. What this does is, if I just go into the XY value, which I've set at F8, if I hold edit down, look down the bottom, this is going to mean that on track 7, look over on the right, you'll see that 7, you're going to play that track from step 8. So the 8 on the left is where the track's going to play from, and on the right hand side is the actual track that's going to do that. So if I just go to track 7 and just isolate this, if I press play, the track just plays normally from the top. But if I hold shift and play, watch what happens. I'll show you that again. Watch the playhead. It's going to start from halfway down, so that the second half of the phrase is going to be the first half, and the first half is going to be the second. So all the other tracks are going to start from the top, but this one is going to start from step 8. Keep your eye on the playhead. Halfway, top. Halfway, top. It's gone to another phrase, but that other phrase is also doing the same thing. It's everything on this track. So you can change this. Let's come back to track 8. If I go into it, if you change the Y value, you'll see it changing there. And this is where the track will start playing from. If I left it here, it would start playing from step 3. If I bring it up here, it will start playing from step F, so from the very end of the phrase. Let's see what happens there. It's just out of interest. Let's see what happens. Come over. Right, so just press play, normal. But if I press shift and play, notice now it will start from step F, which is actually empty. And so step 0 will be the second step in the phrase. Keep your eye on the playhead. See? It'll be down the bottom and then jump straight up the top. See? So it's completely reordered that. It's a fascinating effect, this. I really like this one. So let's just take that back to step 8. And the up and down gives us the track. So if you notice more and more tracks, now that would happen on tracks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. And just keep pressing and they will start disappearing. It's an endless encoder, see? But you have to have contiguous tracks. You can't have tracks 1, 3 and 4. It's always got to be 1, 2 and 3, or 2, 3, 4, you know, that kind of thing. You can't miss one track out. You can have one track or 2 tracks, 3 tracks, 4 tracks, 5, 6, 7, and then keep going, and then it's 2, 3, 4. You get the idea. So that's RMX. So it's a way of reordering the notes on your tracks against the other tracks to get unpredictable and happy accidents. And remember, you won't hear this if you play the track in isolation. You'll only hear it if you're playing all the tracks together, or you press shift and play. So if you want to really check it out, let's just reset this. I've reset it the way it was. So we'll come over to track 7, go into it. Normal. If I solo this track, right, I've soloed that track now. Now notice when I press play, it's starting halfway down. Let's go into it. Plays normally there. If I hold shift and play, all the other tracks are muted. It will start halfway through. And the other way. It's a really fascinating effects command, that. So that's pretty good. I think I've done 7 effects commands today, with many, many more to come. Like I've said many times, it's a long job this, and it's going to take me quite a few weeks and months to get through the whole lot. Anyway, if you got some value out of that, I'm glad, and please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. So there we are. Thanks for watching. All the best. Bye.